Gmail created a new form of email communication, right? Why do we have emails? We can communicate with each other verbally. I could go to the middle of like a street market and say, hey, meet me there Tuesday and I'll catch up with you. I have phones. I can catch up with you that way. But email was a form of communication that made it easy to now, instead of sending letters in the mail, now we could digitize that communication with each other via email in a formal way. It wasn't just an idea that came up. They realized there was a problem. We need faster ways and their competitors. Does that make sense, everyone? And so when you think of yourself as an entrepreneur, stop thinking about just the ideas that you have. Find something that irks you, that annoys you, that actually gets on your damn nerves. I need you guys to understand that, because anything that you find as a problem, that's an issue for you, that is a gold mine opportunity. Because what tends to happen, I tell people I grew up in Haiti, it's the Haitian, and Haiti has a lot of challenges. That's why Haiti is an opportunity gold mine. Because there's so many challenges, where there's infrastructure, tech issues, lack of internet, whatever it is, infrastructure support. There's so many ideas that an entrepreneur could come in and create a solution for. So I'll start by saying that the mindset that I need all of you guys to have as we go through the course of this program is that I am an entrepreneur. And I am an entrepreneur that is more than trying to cultivate an idea. I see a problem, and I'm going to be the influencer that created a solution to tackle that problem and be known for it as a business-minded person. Because if you don't monetize that problem as a solution, it's a hobby. I want to clarify that. If you create a solution for someone else's problem, but you're not making money off of it, it's a hobby. You're just doing it for fun. Okay? So that's mentors, volunteers, and there's nothing wrong with that. Not everyone, like I said, is an entrepreneur. Not everyone wants to monetize their solutions. That is okay. You've seen scientists like that. You've seen inventors like that. There's a lot of people, their personality is not cut for business, and that is okay. There are 7 billion people on the planet. There's beauty to every single person's personality. But if you are a person that created a solution for a problem and you want to make money off of it, that's okay. You are a business person. You're an entrepreneur. That's the mindset that you have. So when you have the idea, I want to talk about 3 steps of executing on a problem that you have a solution for. So you start with ideation, right? Because you find a problem, and now you want to think about how do you cultivate a solution for this problem. So I'm going to talk about your ideation plan, how to ideate, test, and market. Then I'm going to talk about the business plan, because everyone knows about the business plan, but there are different ways to create a business plan. I'll talk about that. And then finally, I call this, which is probably my favorite plan, the execution plan. Because the first 2 plans mean nothing unless you execute on them. Does that make sense, everyone? Unless you execute, your ideas and your business plan has no meaning to it. And so I'll talk about how to actually bucket your time, because in this day and age, we're overwhelmed. There's so much going on in our lives. Every single day, you are going to get pulled left and right for doing something. You got to do something for your family. You got to do something for your business. You got to do something for work. Like, your execution plan is going to separate you from your competitors, from your peers, and anyone else who also has a solution to the same problem that you're trying to tackle. So we're going to go over each component, okay? So let's start with the ideation plan. Alright? So, ideation plan. So, if you have 30 days to really think through what you're trying to provide as a solution to, let's say, a community or a group that has a problem, you have to say, okay, how do you plan that out? Now, a lot of the content is structured in a way for you to execute. So for those of you who know my personality, I probably represent 10 people all in one in terms of the team. I'm extremely targeted and effective with spreadsheets and execution. And so I always break down anything that I'm trying to do, what's the timeline for execution? Like, if I only had 30 days to do something, how do I walk through my ideas? Or if I had only 30 hours to do something, how do I walk through? The steps are always going to be the same, but the pace is up to you. So I want to repeat that to you all. Whatever structure I share with you over the course of the next couple weeks, The pace is up to you. You do not have to execute this in 3 weeks. You can execute it in 30 days. You can execute it in 30 years. It doesn't matter. But the checklist and the to-do list is still the same. So let's talk about week 1. If I had an idea, right, how many of you have actually visualized and actually structured a mock-up? And let me explain what I mean by a mock-up. Let's say a mom needs to find babysitters for her kids, right? And obviously there are websites where you can find a nanny, and there are people that she can ask on her phone. Does anyone have a babysitter? She can walk up and down her community and see if there's any signs on the laundromat for babysitters. But she wants a faster way to find babysitters. And let's say your solution is pretty much a hotline where if someone calls that number, you could respond back, well, here are 15 babysitters in your radius that you can provide, right? That's your idea and that's your solution. How many of you have actually sketched out and written down, like, even just like, you know, stick figures on a piece of paper? This is a customer. If they pick up their phone and dialed into this number, how long would it take for them to wait for a response? Is the responses going to be effective for them? Are they going to like the responses? What if they don't like the responses? How do they reply to me and tell me, I don't want this person to come to my house? And like, if they give a response, who's going to handle those inquiries? And if those inquiries are overwhelming, how do we make sure that they find the babysitter? And how does the babysitter knows that this is a great client for them to work with? Are you guys following me? By walking through the journey that your customer has to go through and walking through the journey that your partner, your ecosystem has to go through, but also walking through the journey that you as a founder has to go to explain this, your team to manage this, you start to realize all the gaps and issues that might come into your process. Does that make sense? Right? And so you got to make sure anytime you have an idea that comes to your head, take the time, whether it's an hour or a few days, to write out the journey for everyone who's going to be involved. Your customer, your clients, your partners, your team, and yourself as the founder. So that way you see all the different hotspots of areas. Once you do that, then you research to see who's already providing the solution in the ecosystem. A lot of times when we have an idea, the first thing we do is research the ecosystem, but that might cloud your judgment and you having a creative spin or approach to this solution. Let your mind run free and just create the solution and just brainstorm on your own before you research what your competitors are doing. Once you research what your competitors are doing, then deconstruct it. Be annoying. You ever see little kids? I'm the mother of 2 daughters, right? And my 3-year-old, she's like in this little phase where she asks questions for everything, right? Like, we'll say, hey, we're going to the movie. She's like, why? Because we're going to see a movie. Why? Because we like this, you know, Lion King. Why? Well, because it's a classic. Why? Because everyone likes it. Why? Right? It gets annoying, but it's her curiosity. You should have that same mentality with your business model as well, and what you see in the market. So let's say you have competitors like CareMe.com. Well, why did they start this way? Well, why did they go down this path? Why did they select, you know, to launch in Nigeria? Why didn't they go into Ghana? Why didn't they select mothers first? Why did they target children? And so on and so forth. So you need to do a why activity where you're questioning what you see in the market, but just because your competitors are out there, it doesn't mean that there's no room for you. And for those of you in the room who say that you have no competitors, that's a big red flag for investors, by the way. Anytime someone tells me they have no competitors, the reason why I say you have 2 red flags, A, it means you don't know your market, you didn't do your research. B, it means that you really don't understand, there's really no market for it. Because anything that's a good idea, you're going to have competitors. That's always how it is. So it's going to dawn a time, humans, we compete. And so if you have a great idea, someone's going to try to compete with you, and you need to be aware of what they're doing. So do the why activity. Third, target your user. So we say that this all the time. Who's your consumer profile? Right? Is it a girl? Is it someone between the ages of 15 to 35? Right? Where do they live? What is their lifestyle? Create a target user and a consumer profile. So once you do that, the next stage is to actually ideate and try to like really review and try to test. I always say that your community is your friend. A lot of people have seen this before. You could do surveys. You could meet people and ask them questions. You could actually, you know, put a landing page out there and see how many people react to it. There are different apps to do an MVP. I challenge you guys to leverage some of those apps. There's Apiary.io, the app builder. There is Appy Pie, there's App Machine, there's Balsamic, there's Fiverr. There's a lot of different, tools, but the basics is try to ask as many people. I always tell people, if you can at least ask 100 people or have at least 100 conversations with people about your product, and not whether or not they like your product or a solution, but what do they think? So these are the type of questions I would ask based on the idea I just talked about. I'll probably go to a mom and like, how do you look for a nanny or a babysitter right now for your child? They'll give me an answer. How easy is it for you to find this person? They give me an answer. Who do you turn to for advice to select your babysitter? They'll give me an answer. Do you regret any previous recommendations? They'll tell me answer. Why do you feel this way? Right? So that way I'm not really focused on myself as the founder and my idea. I'm focused on the customer, right? Or let's say I'm talking to my mom, because sometimes your customers, you want to talk to 100 people and you want to talk to your family. Mom, what do you think about this? When I was growing up, what did you use as a resource? Are things different now than they are today? So you're just getting really good at just having casual conversations with people around you about your business. So you're not annoying them with your business idea. Does that make sense? You don't want to pester people with your business idea. You want to encourage them to have a conversation. Because when people are most vulnerable with a conversation, that's when you get the best insight. If the person knows that you're fishing for information, you say, hey, what do you think about this feature? What do you think about this website? Like, they'll get defensive and they won't give you truth. But when you have a casual conversation with people, that's when their humanity comes out and you're able to get really great insights. And in the final week, I need you to just dissect everything that you learned. Engage, feedback, talk to people, follow up, tell them that you're working on this idea, thank you for the conversation, so on and so forth. So this is just all ideation. Let's talk about now the beat plan. So now you have the idea, you flesh it out, you discuss it, you went over it, you're thinking through it. Now let's talk about the beat plan. Now everyone knows about the beat plan, right? Everyone has a business plan in terms of like, this is my executive summary, this is my information. But there are 3 different ways to have a business plan. Now I'm going to start backwards and work my way forwards, okay? So the business plan can be anywhere from 10 to 25 pages. It's a very long-winded report, pretty much, about your business idea. In today's day and age, people don't really care about the business plan. That's really an internal roadmap for you, okay? And I want to repeat that. That's really for you to know, okay, what's your market plan? What's your competitive landscape? How are you going to develop the product? How are you going to find financial support? How are you going to build a team? That's an internal roadmap. Nowadays, a lot of people like pitch decks. So what they do is like, they try to cultivate their ideas into a pitch deck. So you can have obviously the same content but in a pitch deck format, and a lot of it is more photo heavy, so that way it's easy to follow, or executive summary, which is 1 or 2 pages. It's kind of like a report card or a resume. You know how each of you guys have a resume about yourself and your skill set? You can have a business resume too, and that's called the executive summary. And that's a brief paragraph background about how the company got started, its context, the problem, the solution. Traction is pretty much what have you done so far to build on the idea. Revenue, if there is any. If you don't have revenue, you can say, well, my competitors are generating this amount of revenue, so this is the potential revenue I could build for my company. Your business model, pretty much, how do you make money? Do you charge commission? Do you charge a subscription fee? Do you charge per product? And then the company profile. And the company profile is like your website, social media pages, who's the founder, who's the team, stuff like that. Okay? So business plan, very easy. Now let's transition to execution plan. So once you cultivate your idea, you built your business plan, what's your execution plan? So I always tell people when it comes to execution, you need to remember that you need to know what is your product, how to build out there, and plan it out. So I always tell people, do you have resources and tools to start getting out there to your network? Are you going to any events to meet people to talk about your product? I remember when I first got started, I printed out so remember what I told you, my executive summary, right? I printed that out and I had that with me. So anytime I went to an event, I could give that out to people. Sometimes I had my pitch deck on a USB drive and I gave that out to people that I met, so that way I could pitch them. So just be prepared, engage with your network, and make sure that things sometimes do take time. So create milestones and time frame for every single month. What are you going to do each day? So when I first got started, I still was working. I said, you know what? every day I could dedicate my lunch hour or my evening hour to this, or maybe I don't have time during the week. Every Saturday is only about my business. So 9 to 5 p.m. I'm only working on my business. Whatever schedule works for you, create a blueprint and a plan to engage your ecosystem through events, programs like this one, and other opportunities to get the word out there about what you're doing. All right? So before I transition now into how to build an app and product, we're going to take another break. All right? And then I'm going to pass it on to our next community lead to ask you questions. So we already, just to summarize, went over the first session for today, which is ideation, where it's 3 components. The ideation plan, the business plan, right? If you guys are following me. So we had the ideation plan, the business plan, right? And the execution plan. And we talked about pretty much how to really think through your ideas and think through what you're trying to work on and really establish platform to build on your idea. We talk about the business plan, that the business plan doesn't come in one format anymore, that you have to be ready for anything. So there's a business plan for 25 pages, there's a pitch deck, and there's the executive summary. The final thing is your execution plan. Do you plan out what events to go to, your time frame, making sure that you're really having the mental health and the sanity to really build on your ideas, so that way you're not overwhelmed, all right? So now we're going to transition into the second session for today, which is how to build an app or pilot or product. Again, we have 3 back-to-back sessions today. We already completed the first session. So now I'm going to transition. You guys have a 5-minute break, 5 to 10-minute break. I'll pass it on to, I believe, Christina, for any questions, comments, or feedback.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Can you say yes in the chat? Okay, so we were getting the questions for internal and external, basically. So how many people have started their business based on what the market is doing? Okay. How many of you have realized that you need to take the internal approach now that we went over the information? Market need, yep. Okay, so everybody has to do some design thinking, it seems like. Yep, me too. Okay. All right. So that I feel the same way. No app. There was also some questions about being able to code without knowing how to code a lot. But there's a TEDx video that I'll put after I get done with this. I'll put it in the chat. There was a lady that did some coding without knowing actually how to code. So that might be a good resource for you all, and I'll change that. I'll put that in the chat. What other questions do you have? 2 years ago? You can put it in the chat. Clear. Some validation. Okay. Now down to the 6-month line. Okay. Who needs accountability partners? You. Yeah. Everybody. All right. Okay, so maybe we should link up on the WhatsApp group and create some accountability partnerships so we can get through this together. We are all a community and all trying to get this to the same goal. Yes, there is a WhatsApp group. I'll put the link in the chat after. I will actually put a Google Doc link to a Google Doc for everybody to put their information down so we can have like an accountability thing going on here so we can all do this together. Permission. No, you can't record it. There's no recordings. We're not sending out the slide deck either, so you have to be present and take good notes. If you feel like you've missed something, reach out to one of your cohorts and see if they have. Yes, I can share it on LinkedIn. And the process, yes. So there are a lot of people that has taken notes. You can also scroll through the chat and see some of the things that people have written down. Some people quoted Christine and have gotten. They also put notes in the WhatsApp too. I know some people are not on there, but you can totally get some information from your cohorts. And it's a great opportunity to network. Yes, HP, you have done perfect notes. I've been taking notes from your notes. Target. Yes, it is hard, it is to stay on target when you're taking customers regularly. We should go back to slide. No, sorry, we can't share the notes, the slides. Yes, I will put the WhatsApp link in the chat once Christine gets back on. Do we have any other questions? Habits. We can help others. Yep. Yeah, this is a very tough phase. We don't have WhatsApp. There are Facebook groups. Is everybody on Facebook? It depends on your customer's Facebook. Yes, Facebook and app link. Yes, there is a Facebook group. I can share that link. No, never been. Yes. Yes. Correct. I will share on Facebook and WhatsApp. How do you apply the new skills to our old way of doing business? There are some things that you have to say no to, and you have to really sit down. That's where your internal thought process kicks in, and you need to think about what you need to cut and what you need to start doing to push yourself to get to where you need to be. The new version of yourself requires a different mindset, new habits, and it can be difficult, so you do it at small paces or whatever works for you. All right, Christina's getting back on, everyone. I will talk to you all later.
Thank you so much. As amazing as Andra, Christina was able to engage with you guys on questions and feedback and updates. So thank you so much, everyone. And any questions or comments, feel free to send them in the chat for you. Andra and Christina from the GSE team is on the call to help all of you guys with that. So now we're going to transition into the next session. This is one that's really popular, how to build an app or pilot a product, okay? So hopefully you guys, how was the first session? Just a couple of feedback points. Was that okay for everyone? First session, was it fruitful, useful to you guys? All right. So let's transition now to how to build an app or pilot a product, all right? So let's start with how to pilot, even just a concept. And I always start with it starts with who you are as a person, where the entrepreneur doesn't give enough credit to the tech lead, and the tech lead usually just doesn't respect the entrepreneur. And you see a lot of those things. So we need to start by understanding that everyone has an understanding of technical needs of the business, but also understanding the very basics. So that way, whether you're technical or non-technical, you're able to find the right team members, but also for those who are technical, you're able to find the right business and team leads to work with you. And for those of you who are both, the lucky few of you who are both, understanding also how to build out a team around that as well. And so, when looking for a developer, for those of you who are looking for someone to build your product or your app, this session is actually directed towards non-technical founders, because I have a huge sympathy for people who have a great idea but just don't know how to build a website or an app or develop anything. And I wanted to start by sharing, there are different ways to find a developer, and there are different types of developers that you can leverage. So I'm going to talk about each path that you can take, and then you figure out which one is best for you. The point is just making sure that we're aware of the different things that you could do to build your company and really engage people. So the first thing I will say is, when it comes to people and product, think about, you know, you can also hire like an external freelancer. This is probably the fastest option. Find someone who has the skills to freelance and help you build a website, build a product. Unfortunately, this person may not be able to maintain it because they're not full-time person. You're hiring them to just do a job for a certain time period, and that's it. And so who's going to handle the bugs and the issues with your app or your website? And every website has an issue. I mean, right now, our site just crashed because of all the traffic coming on, and we have a team dedicated to really trying to fix that. If we didn't have one, we just had a freelancer just build the site, we would just be stuck, right? And so being aware of the fact that even though external freelancer is the fastest option, it is also the post-back issues that might come with that. Another thing could be, yes, let's hire an outsource agency to do the entire solution, build something out, scale it, and maintain it. Great, that's a very comprehensive solution, but it's also the most expensive, right? Not everyone can afford to reach out to an outsource agency to help them develop their product. So those are external options. How about internal option, right? Hire a team member, which is probably the most organic option, but you need to really outline what's the equity, what's the salary, what's the positioning agreements, what's the perks. If they don't get any of that, what do they benefit from being a part of your team? Is it learning? Is it access? Is it recommendations? Because each person values different things. Some people don't want to be a part of a full-time team. They just want access to an experience, right? And so there's a lot of different ways to go about that, but understand there are pros and cons to every path that you take, but always be aware that you always have options. And I see a lot of founders get stuck where it's like, oh, if I can't find a free options that you have available to you. Now let's think about people for very cheap to be able to just do a project for you. This is like your freelancer part I was telling you. Again, if you need a quick, you know, tool, then fine, then go for it. And the thing is, a lot of times, sometimes these freelancers can be like, you know, on a retainer and you have them for a long time. But the point is knowing your options and that there are databases now committed to helping you find the. So that's one. Another site is also Fiverr. That's more graphic design, a lot of different options, but there's also technical developers that you find on Fiverr as well. Second thing I would say to this point is take it slow. Start with temporary projects. Don't just hire a CTO to overhaul everything. I see a lot of people just say based on one meeting, is okay, you're my chief technical officer, let's go. Don't do that. Like, it's like, you know, dating someone. Like, you don't meet the first person you meet and say like, hey, you know, we could get married now. You take time to like have experiences with that person and really see, do you work together? Because that person might be the best fit skill-wise. They have great skill sets, but they're probably not the best people to work with, right? And so you need to take your time. And one thing that I've done in the past is like, let's do a 3-month project together. Let's do a 6-month project together. Let's just do this temporary project together. So that way you get to learn the person's character, their quirks, because all that, it's all about dealing with people, right? And really knowing, is this a long-term thing? Because I've had experience where I work with a lot of people from all over the world. I see patterns and signs immediately, and I can tell when someone's going to be a problem. And so sometimes I'm like, look, it's a great thing that we were just at the project level. This is not really working so well. Let's part ways, but we can still stay friends, right? And just build those relationships, because you never know you're going to engage with a person in the future again anyway. And the third thing I would say, that it's not just about coding, it's also about programming capacity. Not every developer has the same skill set. I've seen a lot of non-technical founders get stuck with this, where they legit, oh, this person can code, I'm all set. Some people are designers, and they're into UX design. Some people are front-end developers. Some people are back-end developers, full stack. What I mean by front-end versus back-end is just like, some people know how to design aesthetically like a website, but might not be able to code an app. Everyone has different skill sets in the coding community, and so it's important that you're aware of that. And I suggest that you read articles about this, so that way when you're hiring someone or engaging someone, you don't come off as a complete novice, right? That you understand that there's different types of developers. I have a photo right here on the screen where there's a web designer, there's a web developer, there's a web SEO person, there's an online marketer. Each one of them has digital tech skills, but it's all different ways. Okay? So, another thing that I always tell people, once you think of, like, for example, who are you going to target to build your product? What's the ecosystem or the tools or the platform we use to find a developer? Think about the cost. Like, you know, the cost of building an app is massive. But I want to say to you guys that just because Google, Facebook, and them are spending millions of dollars on a budget for an app, it doesn't mean you have to do the same thing too. You can start with the very basics. And I always tell people, when it comes to, like, ideating and think about these things, you know, when you're writing things down and talking to as many people, I want to, like, kind of include what we learned from the first session. Like, think about, like, the phase of, like, breaking down your product. So the first phase is the alpha phase, where don't think of all the perks and all the features of your product. So, for example, let's say you have an app and it's helping people to find different travel spots in a country, right? Maybe you want something that's connected to the social media. Maybe you want something where they can vote on different parts of the country. Maybe you want, but you don't have to have all those features. Think of the basic solution, and it's off of that first. And as you get more feedback from people, you add to it. The perfect example of this is this GSE accelerator, right? When we first got started, we only did like a 3-day per Spanish a week, and then we did that. And then people say, no, actually we want monthly meetups, and then we did that. Actually, no, we want to be able to meet in person too through our summits, and then we did that. So you don't know what the ecosystem wants until you really get out there. So do an alpha, then you transition to a beta where you add features for feedback. Then you take some feedback. Some of the feedback might be harsh. Be humble. Take in that feedback. Get really good at getting feedback from people. And then reiterate and release and keep going. And go through that cycle of always iterating. We've been doing these accelerators for over 4 years now, and we still feel like a startup, still learning every single year. And so it's very important that you learn those things and really try to optimize as much as you can each time. And so to give you a visual of what I meant, look at a car, for example, right? You see this car, the end product, of course you would love to, like, have a customer say, hey, let me just give you this, right? But you gotta start basically. And sometimes people take the minimum viable product too far, which is why I have this screenshot of this funny series where if you're gonna give someone a car, don't give them a wheel and say, oh, it's a minimal viable product. Eventually you'll have a car. Okay, let me give you 2 wheels, and then I'll give you a door, and here's the car. Like, that's just absolutely ridiculous. A minimal viable product is like, okay, the person wants a car, but maybe you can't provide a car. You can provide another mode of transportation. So maybe you give them a scooter. Maybe you give them a scooter with a handle, and then you transition, you give them a bike, and then you give them a motorcycle, and then you give them a car. 2 different ways of looking at the same product development strategies, but thinking critically about your customer, all right? And so obviously there are mock-up trials, there's feedback, there's users. Make sure that you have testimonials. I've asked this before, how many of you have testimonials from, you know, feedback from your customers or people who are using your product and getting them to say, okay, maybe you can have this, maybe you have that, and get really good at just taking those points. And not every feedback you need to take in. I want to make that very clear. Feedback is great, but if you're taking every single feedback point, you won't be able to move forward. I'm really good at this, sifting feedback every single day. I probably get hundreds of emails from different people as to how to do X, Y, Z for my summits, for my accelerators, for my company, for my products. But I'm really good at sifting through what is something relevant for me to do now, or what is something to, like, parking lot, or something to not do at all, right? So you'll get creative about managing feedback over time. And so now I'm going to take a pause and transition to how to build apps. And Christina mentioned this before, you know, there are different ways to build apps. And one thing I will say is the 3 ways I will say to build an app or build a website or anything like of the sort is you could build without code, right? With app maker platforms, you could build without code using WordPress, so it's like a web app, or you could build with code. So I'm going to walk you through my journey as to how I was able to build my first app. The app is still running today. And it's a really great way for those of you who are non-technical, or even those of you who are technical, to not overthink the process and get something out there within a couple of days in an easy way. And so I'll start with who started, like, or not so much started, but who was really well known for pioneering the movement of like building without code. So there's a woman named Tara, I believe her name is, and she has a TED Talk, how to build apps without code. And she actually has like sessions and free workshops on this all the time. So I highly suggest that you watch her TED Talk on YouTube for 15 minutes. It's a really great talk. And she goes over pretty much how to build the app without code. And so I'm going to walk you through that. So let's start with building an app without code using app makers. So app makers are very, very popular. They're pretty much an app that you drag and drop, like kind of like how you do a website or any type of phone app. And Google App Maker has one, iBuild app has one, Bubble is another one. And every year there's new competitors that come to the market to help you build an app. These are apps that literally not only help you build the app, the aesthetics and the design within a day or within a week, but they also are able to publish to Android and pretty much all the likes. So it's really good to see that you're able to pretty much like have that opportunity to be able to have an app maker help you in everything that you're doing. So highly suggest that when it comes to these things that you really think through looking at these app maker platforms. Some of them are free and some of them like are a basic monthly cost, like $5 a month, $10 a month. All depends on your budget. They range, but they are app makers there available, right? So it's really, really cool to see that those things are available for people to use. Another thing to talk about when it comes to app makers is that sometimes it might be very hard to select. So when I recommend app maker software platforms, you're going to get overwhelmed with all the options. So I highly suggest that you go to top10reviews.com. They pretty much showcase all the top apps, and they can even tell you, okay, this is the best app for restaurants. This is the best app for startups and blockchain. This is the best apps for so-and-so. And they give you recommendations as to which ones to try, so that way you don't have to like be overwhelmed with finding the right decision to build your company, right? The second way to build apps, I already shared with you the first one. You can build apps without code using app maker platforms. Another way to do that was with WordPress. WordPress is like a plugin to do websites. It's a very popular one. It powers a lot of the websites around the world. And plugins are a great way to kind of test an idea and build a web app. I've done it before. And so there are millions of different pre-done themes, so that way you don't have to build a website from scratch. And there's a great video on YouTube called Building an App with WordPress. And WP Begin is also another website that I've used to build web apps online. And so right then and there, for those of you on the call, you already have today as we speak. So really great resources for that. So to summarize, some of you might say, okay, which option should I take? Should I use an app maker or should I do WordPress? My advice for beginners is like outline what you want to build first. Spend a week researching the links that I've just shared with you, like the app maker, the WordPress themes. Do this process option, and then make a decision on the best approach for you, right? And see what works for you that way. So that way you can make a great decision. Now let's talk about the third option of building an app, which is how to build with code. Now, I actually learned how to code. It actually was a very enriching experience for me. And the first step I would say is a lot of times we feel alone when it comes to starting something new, but you're not alone. A lot of people have done it before you have learned. And so leverage your community, leverage the people around you to learn how to build an app. So the first thing I would say is read blogs about other people who've done it before you and get inspiration, resources, and tips. And not any type of blog. I researched like people like James Penn. He wrote a 12-week process, how you learn how to code by yourself in 12 weeks. Another person on Lifehacker learned how to code in 8 weeks. I learned Life After Code Academy, because I use Code Academy to learn how to code. There's so many different links and resources. I myself learned how to code within 3 to 5 weeks. Built my first website within 3 weeks. Built my first app within 4 weeks. And so there are different, and I couldn't have done that if I didn't see the journey that other people have gone through to learn from and then do it myself. And then the second thing is research keywords from articles before you start to learn how to code, or before you start coding in general, because you need in order to do that. And so like learning basics, like for example, like design mockups, testing, deployment, hosting, text editors, terminals, like these are the terms that might be foreign to you now, but when you start to learn how to code, you need to know what this means, right? And so the first 3 steps I would say is read about what other people have done, research keywords like the ones I just shared with you before, and make sure you sign up for different free meetup groups, forums, and resources and networks, so that we can learn from other people and communities as to how to really optimize. I mean, GSE, we are teaching you as much as we can, but I could tell that you guys are getting a lot of learning from the WhatsApp groups and just engaging with each other. That's the benefit of these communities. So those are the first 3 steps I would say before you start coding to go through, so that way you can have a really robust foundation of resources and community around you to help you. Then look for ways to learn how to code for free. So I've leveraged a lot of different online resources to do this. And so I'm like in love with, you know, different ways to learn how to code. So depending on your budget, you can learn how to code for free, you can learn how to code for cheap, or you can learn how to have the budget expensively. So obviously not everyone has $5,000 to $15,000 to pay for a boot camp from a platform like General Assembly or the list of companies that I have right here on the links. Some of you, maybe you have the budget to learn how to code for $50 or less, and OneMonth.com, Code School, Treehouse, Udemy, and Udacity, they all have online coding sites for $50 or less for you to learn how to code, and they are great for our friends. I learned how to code for free. So the sites I used was Code Academy, Free Code Camp, Code Wars, Skillshare. YouTube was amazing. I used free courses from Coursera and edX. I joined a bunch of meetup groups in my community, and I was pregnant at the time, so me and my big belly I went all across New York to meet hackers who were learning how to code, and coded with them. And so it was a great experience. Got to meet tons of new people and really learn with other people teaching me. So it was a great experience for me. I was very happy to have done that and to really have had that opportunity to learn from other people who have done it before. And so definitely recommend that you do that. And I'm going to say this to everyone: please stop making on the screen. Please be respectful to your fellow mates. Going back to this, I'm going to make sure that I mute everyone again, and then that way we can get back to it. So yeah, so making sure that you know there are different ways to learn how to code, and it's not that hard, right? And so definitely suggest that, you know, when it comes to building the strategy of learning how to code your first app or your first website, that don't overthink it, that it's quite alright to be able to do this by learning through the basics, okay? And so I also want to give you guys a point of inspiration now that I'm coming to conclusion with the second session, is that everyone knows about Instagram, and Instagram was made by 2 guys in 8 weeks. They were actually working full time when they learned. One of them learned how to code the basic app at night after work, built a prototype website, showed it to some of his friends, quit his job, and then got seed funded, and then he was able to hire someone to work with them, and then Instagram is what it is today. Now obviously not everyone's journey is going to be this way, but the reason why I bring this up is that your journey and your path and your future is in your hands. Like anything that's a barrier to you when it comes to building your company, whether it's like, how do I ideate around this, how do I build a business plan, how do I code a website, how do I code an app, it's all up to you. If you are in doubt, there's so many free resources like the ones I just shared to learn how to code, whether it's like learning to code through WordPress, learning to code with app makers. Like there's so many options as I'm flipping through these slides to show you that you can make anything happen if you put your mind to it. So always remember that. So I just wanted to make sure that I concluded with that point of inspiration, just letting you know that some of the biggest platforms that you're using today started with humble beginnings, started with someone saying like, let me learn the basics and get started. And time moves very fast when you're learning because you have a goal, and you learn better when you have a goal at the end of the tunnel. So I'll conclude here and say Thank you so much for hearing the second session. Before I transition to the third session, which is pretty much how to legitimize your company, talk a little bit of basics about incorporation, how to register for credit, some basic things that people need to know, and then of course transition to our first speaker of the series. So I'll give you guys again transition to 5 minutes of Q&A and feedback from Christina. We're on. Whoever is next, I'm going to transition now. You guys now have a 5 to 6 minute break to go grab drinks, water, and we're going to transition to the third session right now.
Hi again, Andra here. So we went through this with Christina. Please be ready for your questions. Just as a recap, I have to say that I am a technical person, but sometimes being too technical can come in the way of you as an entrepreneur. So the main point of Christine's last hour was how to take advantage of all the free platforms.
So where do I start to do a corporation process? Some places like the US, you can just go legalzoom.com and incorporate. Some people it's not that simple. It might cost thousands to do that in person with actual paperwork, go to actual incorporation office. But the point is, once you consider incorporating your company and paying the fee and being able to raise the funds to do that and pay taxes, then you have the opportunity to really think critically about the legitimacy of the company and how to really leverage other perks of being quote-unquote incorporated. Because if you're operating under the radar, which is fine in the early stages when you're still trying to figure out your idea, I don't suggest you incorporate your business until you actually have some type of cash flow, where you actually have customers and you actually have a process. That's my suggestion, because the last thing you want is to pay the money to your corporate, have to pay taxes, and you have no cash flow coming in. It's the worst position to be in. And so make sure that once you have a personal phone number, you know to the public it's a business number, so that way you look more legitimate. It's something I did before I incorporated, because I wanted to look very legit, and that's what I did. For those of you in the US, you're going to want to create a DUNS number, which is a DUNS profile for your business, simply because you want to have a credit profile. You can't have a credit profile until you have a DUNS number. And so for the American US-based companies, or anyone who wants to base their company in the US, make sure you remember that. Also, anytime you have a vendor, that also can help you with credit relationships. Whether you have a credit history or not, let's say you work with a vendor to buy, you know, resources like pens and paper, or you go to a certain shop to buy stuff for your office. Keep all those receipts and keep like a track of what you do with that monthly. So whether it's your phone service bill, whether it's like your supplies, whether it's like, you know, when you're paying for branding, like banners and t-shirts and stuff like that, because that also helps your credibility. If you're working with vendors and your vendors could trust that you pay on time for your resources, that helps you with a credit profile. It's something that is very, very important that you do that. Right? So really, really good. Really good that you build those relationships, but you also keep track of that. After the cycles, go for it. Apply for a business credit card. Sometimes in the beginning, you might have to apply for a business credit card with your personal credit score, but it works really well to have a business credit card, because now you start to build the credit history of the business. So that way, over time, even if your personal credit is not up to par for certain things, you can start using your business credit to get access to real capital for your business. Because eventually, you want everything that has to do with your business to go through your business bank accounts and your business credit profile. So really good to do that, to, you know, build in that. And finally, I'll say, the last thing is, manage everything with a CRM software. So eventually, you know, a lot of companies, we always use spreadsheets to manage everything. Once you have a CRM, you're on to the next level to manage your business. And I highly, highly recommend that you use CRM software to manage your customers, your clients, your payments, your invoices. You don't want to track all of that online, on paper. Because God forbid, if you lose all your paperwork, that's it. That could be like literally your business done. Some of you are aware of that. HubSpot is a partner, so you get free discounted credits for HubSpot to manage your invoices and your marketing. But there are tools like Zoom. There are tools like Facebook Workplace, Monday.com. These are American-based organizations, by the way. There's QuickBooks to manage your accounting. Like, definitely leverage these resources. But it's so helpful to be able to say that, you don't have to track everything through spreadsheets, that you actually have a CRM to track everything that you're doing. So, highly, highly recommend if you have a software activation platform for everything. Of course, your communication like Zoom, Google Hangouts, Slack, and stuff like that. But a CRM can make you get more sales because it shows you what each member of your team are doing. Where are you losing money? Are you tracking your payments? Are you paying things on time? All of that is tracked through the software. So highly recommend that you look for CRM software locally or internationally for your business. All right. And so I'll go back by saying, elaborate a little bit more on this, that when I first got started, I didn't know that you could create a business credit profile, and something that I regret, because it wasn't until like 2-3 years in that when I was applying for like grants or when I was applying for a line of credit or anything like that, that I realized because I didn't have a business credit profile, I couldn't do it. So I had to build it from scratch. So I'm saying this to you guys now that we sometimes, as startup founders or business owners, we think small and maybe short term. We don't think about how to build our company so that it can become an enterprise, and each enterprise usually has access to these things. So never forget that, it is really to your advantage and to, your credit if you can really try to build a business profile through your bank account and also through a credit profile over time. Again, each country has different ways of doing this. I know in Haiti or in certain parts of the Caribbean or Africa, there's not really credit profiles. It's really who knows who. But I do know that you can create a business bank account, and that's usually your credit experience from there. So try your best to be able to do that. It will help you tremendously. And another thing about the software, when it comes to CRM, like, it's really, really important that when it comes to CRM that you have a way of really thinking through either the free versions or like the cheaper versions to track everything that you're doing, so that way your team has everything in one place. So that way, God forbid, if someone's off track, you have a way of finding access into critical information about your business to keep moving forward as a company over time. So these are 3 things that I'll summarize again. Incorporation, yes, it's costly, but it leads to these other outcomes that you can get out of it that can benefit your company. Obviously, you have to register to pay taxes, and I know for some people, like, staying on the radar helps, but once you have cash flows, you don't want to lose out on the opportunity to have bigger cash flows because you don't have like a business bank account, a credit profile, and access to resources to really scale your company with a CRM that could track your business activities. So highly recommend that you do that. So with that said, I wanted to go back and summarize a couple of things because there was a lot of questions about some of the content that I shared today. And so I want to go back really quickly to help synthesize everything for people today before we transition to our first speaker. All right, and Andrea, please check to see if Christy is on the call, and then we'll be able to transition to our first speaker. So Christy, if you're on the call, please send a message on the chat feed. All right. So going back to the previous conversation about today in terms of what we're going over, we went through a lot of content already, right? It's already 2 hours in, and we already went through a lot of different content. So I just want to summarize and recap a little bit before we transition again to questions and then our next speaker for the call. I'm going to pause it for 60 seconds because I see a couple people are still sending questions regarding my next conference. So if you have any more questions, I'm going to give you guys 6. You could start solo and learn code, but it might take slower and it might not be the best product, which is fine. But knowing that there are different ways to go about building a product, right? And just the light at the end of the tunnel is that there are platforms to be able to do that. There are resources for you to build your products out there that helps tremendously when it comes to building a product. And then finally, understand that costs will vary, but the cost that you see on TV and on the news is not always the cost for everything. So make sure that you understand that it's okay if other people are raising millions. That doesn't mean it's going to be your journey, right? We talked about mapping out a product, thinking critically about, you know, alpha version, beta 2 release dates, really leveraging feedback from the community to really reiterate your product, because as people give you feedback, you'll come up with something that they really love over time, right? Then we talk about how to build an app that builds without code using app makers, build with WordPress, build with code. We talked about Tara Reid, who is an influencer who did a TED Talk about how to build an app without code. It's a 15-minute TED Talk about what she's done, and she's been able to generate millions in sales by doing this. So it's a really smart move because she wasn't a coder. Then we talked about app maker platforms, and of course there's so many, so you might get overwhelmed. So go to top 10 reviews and look at best app maker software for 2017, 2018, 2019. So that way you could compare and contrast the best ones that will help your business succeed. Right, and then we talked about you could build without code using WordPress. So WordPress is another great way to be able to build your app online, because they have millions of themes pre-coded or ready for you to use. And of course, if you're confused as to how to do that, there's a 1.5-hour video on YouTube that walks you through how to build an app with WordPress. It's a really great YouTube video to go over that. I love it. I've used it before. It's very comprehensive. It is an old video by Chrissy Ray, but it's really really good to do that, you know, to make sure that you have that process and understand that there are different options for that. And then of course, because some of you were overwhelmed with some of the contests, like choosing app maker versus WordPress, what did we choose? I gave you some really sound advice on the fact that, look, not everything is meant for everyone. Just take the time a week to research all the options. There's so many different things that you can choose for, and then pick the best approach for you. Not based on your friends, not based on your partner's advice, not based on your competitor's advice, based on you. What do you think is the best way to go about it? And that's the best mode of action to take. And then of course we talked about the third option, which is how to build a product with code. And I talked about the 3 steps that you need to think of before you even start coding anything. Is read blogs from other people who've done it before. There are tons of great links about how to do this. It's really, really helpful. Talked about, you know, researching the right key phrases to learn to be able to do that. We talked about, you know, how to really learn how to code by leveraging meetup groups, forums, programs, and resources to build. And I talked about, okay, now that you know you've done these 3 steps, these are the different ways you could go about it. So you can learn how to code the expensive way, which is the boot camp that might cost you up to $15,000. You can learn to code from sheet with some direction with a guidance person to help you walk you through for over a month, like onemonth.com, $50 or less. Or you can learn how to code like I did for free using Code Academy, Free Code Camp, YouTube, Skillshare, all these different resources to help you build from scratch. And of course, I wanted to end by saying, like, Instagram did this. Everyone knows about Instagram. They started and built their app in 8 weeks. The first founder literally learned how to code during the nights and weekends. So if they could do it, you could do it too. And then finally, we went over how to legitimize your company. And I know this is a stage that for different people is not the easiest step, but it's something that really brings, you know, a lot of perks in many ways. That once you start having cash flow, and again, I recommend do not do this until you actually have real cash flows. Like, you don't want to be a startup founder who spent thousands of money to incorporate a business and don't have cash flow and have to pay taxes on a business or maintain a business without any capital flow. So once you incorporate, you get your tax ID, you start opening a bank account, get a legitimate phone number, get a legitimate CRM to manage your business and really scale your business in an optimized way. And so that's what we went over today. I'll go over what we're going to go over tomorrow and a final closing announcements and updates, that really exciting updates I want to share with you. But right now, I just want to make sure our speaker is on the call. Is Christy on the call, I believe? And Christy, just to give you guys a brief introduction, someone I actually really admire. I think back in 2017, she was a speaker and a partner ecosystem for us for our GSE accelerator in the Middle East. She did an article that kind of went mini viral on Inc. Magazine as a contributor. Really awesome female influencer, and I love what she does in terms of her spotlights on Inc. Magazine, but also on her blog. And so when she comes on the call, please give her a warm welcome. She really is an amazing influencer, and she's taken the time to speak with all of you guys on the call, and so really respect her time. During her talk, she'll go over her presentation. Feel free to ask questions during the presentation on chat feed, so that way when she transitions to questions, she doesn't have to wait for that, and she'll be able to see those questions as they pop up, okay? So I'm gonna see if she's on the call. Andra, if there's any update, is Christy on the call, or can we message her to come on? Because I'm sure the group will be very excited to hear her come online. So that's the boot camp that we did for today, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I know it was a lot of content, but that was us today. But we're not done. We still have another hour left of content. So this is why we always tell you guys, get your drinks, get your water, get your notepads. I know it's a lot. So hopefully it was useful to you guys. While we transition for Christy to come online, I'm going to send a link to blast to you guys. Anything that you guys like the most, I elaborate on more after the call and stuff like that. So I'm going to send this link, so look out for it. And right now I'm just going to look to see if Christy was on the call. And oh, nice. She's on. So let me unmute Christy DePaul. I think she's on the line. I'll stop sharing my screen. And again, I'm going to transition to Christy, who's not only going to introduce herself to all of you, but she's our first keynote for the accelerator. So guys, please give her virtual claps from the chat feed and give her a warm, warm welcome. Christy, excited to have you. Thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you so much, Christine. I'm so thrilled to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm coming to you live from just a bit north of Seattle here in Washington State. And it is an absolute pleasure to chat with you today. Now I have a presentation for you. Of course, I've had some issues with Zoom on my computer, so we're doing this very 21st century. I'm on my cell phone right now. And after the fact. So you'll have that for posterity. And for right now, you can at least pay attention and not read. So maybe that's an advantage. As Christine mentioned, I was a judge at a previous GSE accelerator, and I've been a contributor for Inc. Magazine. I also run my own fully remote content marketing firm. It's called Founders Marketing. And we provide services to startups and global organizations that are supported by foundations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on continents all over the globe. I think we're on 5 continents now in terms of our client base. And our clients are, and what this means is they might be remote training firms, or they could be startup organizations, certain niche. However, we have positioned ourselves as content experts, and that is what I want to talk to you about today. Bold content and why you need it. So I'll be checking out my presentation again, and it will be shared with you following this talk, and I look forward to your questions at the very end. So a couple of brief notes about content. First, your words really matter. They communicate your value, and they should focus on the reader and not the writer. Oh, excellent. We've got my presentation up. Thank you so much, and we'd be on the second slide at this point. So as we catch up, again, they communicate our value. So when you think about your company, your product, your service, what is it that you're truly offering? And this is not just to get words up on a website, right? Like, this is something very important. And I see that we're skipping ahead here, so ignore that slide for a moment. So they communicate our value first and foremost. And we've got to be careful about how we describe ourselves. Thinking first about audiences will be really important, and I will dive into that in another slide. Second, they should focus on the reader, not the writer. I found in my work, and my team especially, having interacted with many startups, startups will focus and founders will focus on themselves or on their companies, perhaps more so than they should their prospective customers. there's a lot of emphasis about we, us, and not enough speaking to you, the reader, the prospective customer, the potential investor. So whenever you're communicating, especially using the written word, because that is something that people can revisit on your website, in your social media channels, you need to be focused on who you're speaking to and exactly how you're speaking to them. That message should be tailored. And all of your messages should be concise and clear. If you find that you have to rely on a lot of jargon, ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I positioning our company in this particular way? Am I only marketing to specialists? Or is our product or service something that should appeal to a broader audience? And if so, could what I'm saying alienate those audiences? So that's really important, and those sound like very basic things, but these are tenets that a lot of entrepreneurs initially will ignore. There's a lot of hype about, okay, content marketing and lead gen, and how can we get more people to come into our funnel to buy our services or products. But before you even get to that point, you have to be able to communicate your value immediately, because people don't have the level of attention that they once did, right? We've got tons of noise happening today, and you've got to do that within a few seconds. So moving on to the next slide, how do you describe your company, right? And I think a lot of people will recognize this sort of format. We are the blank of blank. So we are the Uber of food service. I would especially recommend that you don't compare yourselves to other companies. This is not a strong statement by any means, saying that you are the someone else of something. Think about you as you are the firm that does X. This is not a value statement, and this is a mistake that a lot of companies make. So rather than positioning yourself within the realm of what currently exists, and having your listeners always think of that other company as some sort of anchor point before they consider yours, instead shift and think about what it is that you uniquely offer that isn't comparable to any other peer organization or aspiring organization. Okay, moving on to my next slide about knowing your audiences. And this one's very important. So often, organizations, especially in the early stages, will be speaking to everyone as if they're all singing from the same song sheet, as if they all have the same needs, wants, and desires. And now I know if you're looking at this list, you can see it, potential investors, and that possibly, you target those messages a bit differently. But at the same time, when you're looking at other audiences here, I'm not sure that all startups are aware that peer companies are paying attention, that competitors are also keeping their eyes peeled at how you're describing yourselves and the way that you're positioning yourselves, especially in public places like on social media. And in certain parts of the world, of course, different channels are more popular than others, and certain channels make you more discoverable than others, right? Like on Twitter, for example. But what we found in our work with startups is that many will take the same message and recycle it and use it across all of these different audiences. And that is a way to really, it limits your success. It's quick and dirty, it's easy, okay, hey, this is us, this is what we do, and it's great to be consistent, but at the same time, if you're not tailoring your message to an industry influencer, are you going to get the same level of impact? What is it that you want them to do? Why should they care? That is the question that you should be asking yourself with every single person within these audiences. If you've created personas for communication, you should be asking yourself what's going on in the minds and hearts of all these people. What do they care about, and how can you best appeal to them? Now, that doesn't mean that you're constantly changing your message, but it does mean you're tweaking it, right? So you wouldn't explain something the same way to a prospective customer that you might to a potential investor. And a member of the media is going to want you to be more objective and to sort of lose some of the superfluous wording. So I've done a lot of work in PR, working with editors and myself, having written for many publications. And I know when I start reading marketing fluff. So people can smell this a mile away. You have to be very careful about how you describe your offering and making sure that you can make good on your promise and not making bombastic claims like we are the first, best, or only, unless you truly are. Okay, moving on to our next slide. Thinking about those audiences, how are you speaking to them? The first question is one of my favorites to go over with our clients. What is keeping them up at night? How much time and effort have you put into figuring out what is bothering these people, or what could help them solve their problems? I can't emphasize that enough. It's a very important point that I think a lot of people gloss over, that we don't think enough about how to solve other people's problems, because in essence, once we have determined this, it will help our businesses to grow. Second, why is your product or service a must-have? There are many that are nice-to-haves, but a must-have is something that will lead people to purchase. So think about it in terms of, okay, we might run a webinar service, but you're not really selling webinars, are you? You're selling companies the opportunity to grow their brands. You're selling them, this is the means to an end. So always think about how your product is enabling something far greater than the sum of its parts. Don't think so literally that your product or service is in itself what it is. What my company does is enable brands to grow their footprint across continents. Now we do that by smart content strategy, but that is what we ultimately do for our clients. That is the big picture of your offering. Also consider what blind spots you could potentially have. And if you have trouble thinking about the blind spots that you or your expert team might have, it's time to reach out to prospective customers and have a focus group to run some surveys and determine what it is that might be revealed that can help you to further hone your message and grow your business. Okay, and I know we started a little late and we're getting toward the end of the session here. That concludes my brief presentation. I wanted to leave some time for a Q&A. So I'd be happy to take your questions, and I'm looking in the participant list, the chat list right now.
Christy, you actually have like about 15 minutes.
Oh, excellent.
You and questions, so you have like plenty of time, no worries.
Fabulous. Okay. Let's see here. Hey, there's nothing like brevity. So in terms of fast, let's see. We've got one question from Doug Franklin. How do we align the message for customers, for investors, consumers, and other stakeholders? So for Doug and everyone else listening, I would advise that you determine first which investors make the most sense for you to target. I imagine that you've also determined some personas regarding your consumers. When it comes to other stakeholders, it depends on who we're talking about, if they're members of the media, for example, or influencers. So aligning the message starts with doing some research on these groups, understanding, again, what they care about. With regard to investors, who have they invested in before, someone within your field or not? What previously has appealed to them and why? So those are things that you can figure out asynchronously, and then to the extent that you're able and to the extent that people are willing to give you time to discuss, I would recommend reaching out to possible investors, to members of your network who are willing to give you feedback on your product or service. Okay, this is a really good question from Juliana Rosales. If we have different audiences, we need to use the same form of communication or different? Such an excellent question. I would say you have to use different forms, but you have to understand where people are gathering. So, for example, for some of our clients, that means LinkedIn, and there are conversations happening there. For others, it's a different social network. And for still others, they're going to be most easily reached by newsletter, so push communications. So you have to understand the temperaments and the desires of your target audiences to best know which channels through which you need to communicate. Of course, you're going to have a website. Of course, you're going to have some sort of social presence in 2019. But it's going to depend on the audience. So, for example, if you're targeting new moms, okay, you're going to be looking at Twitter chats that focus on issues that matter to new moms. You are going to look at certain forums and blogs that are popular among these groups. And this isn't rocket science. It's not so hard to find, but it involves some legwork online, of course, and it involves you proactively seeking these forums and channels out and figuring out how people are discussing their problems, and also ways that you can describe your product or service as a means to solving those problems. Okay, a question here from Oyen. How do you find out what keeps your consumers up at night? So not everyone is willing to talk about, speaking of problems, what's bothering them in a public forum. So one of the recommendations we've made for our clients is to create first of all, creating content that brings people in really helps. So if you have a blog, your blog should not be an afterthought. Your blog should be speaking directly to the audiences you'd like to connect with, if those are within your list. Probably prospective customers is going to be one of them. Figuring out what keeps them up at night. There are a multitude of ways. First of all, you could conduct a survey based on your newsletter list. I'm getting very tactical here, but I want to be able to provide you with some actionable insights. You could create a series of Twitter polls. If you've built a following on that channel, you can also do polls on other channels. And then, interestingly, you can take those polls and turn the resulting data into findings that you can then share. You could share them as an infographic or within a report. So there are many ways that you can be creative about figuring out what is really troubling your customers, how you can help solve it, and then communicating to the world that, hey, we know what's bothering our customers. Further lending you credibility because you've determined how to speak to their issues. Okay, scrolling through the questions here. How do we, so here's a good question from Raj K. How do we get media exposure? So a lot of PR firms will tell you to hire them, and this is what you need to do, and you've got to shell out for a retainer on a monthly basis. Now, this simply isn't true. However, as my team and I also manage blogs for prominent brands, and some of these blogs get a lot of traffic and are publishing frequently, we're also vetting pitches from a number of different startups and plenty of entrepreneurs. Some advice on media exposure. If you're going to send a press release, do not use the method known as spray and pray. Do not go to every blog and try to just copy and paste a message and say, look, I really love your blog. Will you cover this? Or with any journalist, right? I really enjoy reading X because those formulas are so easy for anyone to see through. It's very thinly veiled. It represents a lazy effort, frankly, and it's unlikely to be fruitful for you. So why waste your time? When it comes to media exposure, you need to start building relationships yesterday. So if you're not going to hire a PR firm, which again is fine, you need to start figuring out who the influencers are from the media, through trade journals, through publications like Inc., Fast Company, Entrepreneur. Start following these people, especially on Twitter. It's a great place to connect with influencers in the media. You should be genuine and not just liking everything that they tweet, for example, but you can begin engaging with these people. You can start reading past articles of theirs. And I know you're all really busy, and who has the time? But doing this kind of research is super important to make you stand out as a human being versus a bot that basically just shares press releases that will never get picked up and no one will write about. So context is everything. Relationships really matter. And yes, you should have started building those yesterday. But the next best time to start building them is today, right now. Okay, moving on down to another question. How can we convince an investor, this is from GBN, who seems skeptical? Well, this answer might madden you, but it depends on who the investor is and what are they skeptical about. So I think the greatest advice that I can offer with regard to that is being completely frank in a meeting with an investor, asking them, okay, what issues do you see? Open the floor, air out the laundry. Let's figure out what is troubling them, so that even if you can't speak to it on your feet as you are in the proverbial hot seat in this moment, you'll be able to go back, regroup with your team, and speak to those concerns for future presentations and future meetings. So that convincing an investor, really the answer lies in understanding what troubles them, and that will be tied to their priorities. So not every investor is going to be skeptical in the same way that this particular one is. But if you get insights from them, there could be some overlap and there could be some universal insights that you can then have a dedicated response to and be able to prepare for your next meeting. So you're not always, in fact, most of the time you will not be successful in your initial meeting with an investor, but what it is and what I'd like for all of you to think about it as is a learning opportunity. It's a way for you to iterate upon your message and to understand what's going on in the minds of investors. Because I would wager that few people on this call right now are investors themselves. So yet again, it's an opportunity for us to be able to do research and to understand their motivations, what is the psychology behind their decision making. Okay, scrolling through. What data, okay, this is from Zainin to everyone, what data do you recommend each business should gather? So there are, of course, in Europe, there's GDPR regulations when it comes to gathering and sharing data. And in different parts of the world, you're going to run into different compliance issues. But speaking generally, when you're gathering data, really the most important piece is a valid email address. And of course, you're going to wind up having people sign up for maybe a free trial without a valid email. That might be something that they've fabricated. That's a risk that you run. But the email address is most important. And then I would say next to that would be the person's first name and the organization. Last name, less important. Frankly, if you have the organization, you'll be able to find the person and be able to understand their role and tailor your messages to them or assign them to subgroups within your email client, so that you can then tailor messages that are just for sales managers or only for head of product. So that's the data that I think you should gather regarding each of your prospective customers. Okay, a question from Melissa Chung. How many times should you try reaching out to influencers and engaging target customers before it becomes spam? Such an excellent question, Melissa. So this is a scenario where we have to ask ourselves, have these target customers opted in to receive something from you? If so, you should have clarified during that opt-in stage what they could expect, whether it's a series of emails that's bi-monthly, bi-weekly, etc. So you need to be very clear upfront about the cadence of how frequently you'll be contacting someone, and just after that, what the value is that they can expect. Like, why should they even bother opening your email when they have 100 others from different companies and organizations? So what is it that that's going to matter to them? I think instead of thinking about how will this become spam, think about, frame your question from a different perspective. how can I reach out to influencers and target customers in a way that will speak to their needs? Because if you are talking about helping someone solve a genuine problem that they're facing, it is not spam. They can always opt out, and you can always leave the door open. If you're reaching out, let's say via LinkedIn DM or email, you can always say, please let me know if this isn't relevant for you. Okay, just that simple statement, giving people the chance to say, hey, not interested or not right now. You could also add a note that if you know someone who this would be relevant for, can you recommend a colleague or friend, for example? And you'd be surprised how often that can lead to a warmer lead, because the person you're reaching out to isn't exactly the right one, but they know someone who could use this. So always focus on the utility of what you're providing, rather than trying to sell, because if you focus on the utility, your product or your service will, in essence, begin to sell itself. Okay, from Franklin Calla, how do you measure the impact of influencer and PR campaigns? Well, you're going to love this answer. It's going to depend on the channels within the campaign. Here are some common metrics that we have used. So looking at Google Analytics to determine any uptick in traffic or a lower bounce rate. So it depends on where you've directed people's attention. Are you sending people to a specific landing page? Are you trying to get more visitors to your site, to your blog? You can always take a look at the content drill down in Google Analytics to determine where exactly people's eyeballs are landing and for how long. So that's one way to measure the impact, depending on where you've directed people. If your influencer and PR campaigns are to obtain coverage in specific outlets, of course, getting the coverage itself is important. I would set up Google Alerts, if you have not already, for your company, your product or service, to determine if anyone is talking about it beyond what you've been able to see in social channels. So looking at the types of organizations that may have covered your product or service, the number of followers they have, of course the number of articles matters, but all of these things combined, these are the ways that you measure the impact of a PR campaign. And of course, if you've had any sort of uptick in inbound leads, people asking you about, can I have a demo, or people outright signing up for your newsletter, those matter too. But it's normally not a straight line from, I heard about this, to I'm buying it right this second, right? There's a customer journey, and along the way, there are points at which people are convinced. So this is one stop along the way, typically, when people encounter media. It's not, oh, I saw you in the newspaper, or I saw you online, and now I've decided to buy. Okay, just doing a check on time here. Christine, how are we doing?
We're doing just fine. I think we have 5 more minutes left.
Okay, fabulous. Cool. We've got a question from Evo. How do you communicate a strategic pivot without coming across as flighty or opportunistic? I love how you've worded this. Want to transmit stability while taking our work in a new direction. Well, you wouldn't be the first nor the last startup to pivot strategically. So I think many startups have been successful in this endeavor by embracing transparency. So talking about your journey thus far and why you're making, your rationale behind making this shift. What you've uncovered that matters more. And by the way, what you've uncovered is never just, well, we could have a larger profit margin, or we could appeal to more people. Okay, that might be true, but that's not why you're making the shift. It's because you've realized that a different type of product or service is going to, again, meet the needs of your customers in a way that aligns or resonates with them. So think about your journey as an entrepreneur and how much you want to pull back the veil. And so this could be a blog series that you create, on your own website. This could be something that you publish on Medium and link back to your website. Again, you always want to bring all eyes back to your digital properties. So even if you are publishing on LinkedIn or on Medium, for the sake of reaching your followers, you should be bringing people back to your website ultimately. So in this case, if you don't want to come across as flighty or opportunistic, and again, it depends on your industry. If you're in medical devices, it's going to matter if you've made a strategic shift and why people are really going to care, dive into it. So consider the nature and these, whether it's sensitive or not in your industry, all of those subtle nuances, and also consider creating messaging that allows people to understand your thinking behind the pivot. Because it's in this day and age, you will have they've changed the pricing, but they have enabled some customers to stay with that current pricing throughout the years. And I'm not sure when they will retire it. However, after a certain point, they shut that off for new signups. And at some point, I would imagine that they will also either shift the current customers who are now still on that former pricing plan to either paying yearly, so they're getting that lump sum all the time versus a smaller monthly amount, or they will shift everyone to a different price point. So I will say that if you're going to do something very drastic, as you're saying, huge early bird discount, that will be something that you should only offer for a brief amount of time, and this should be something that is just for a specific group, and you do not have to continue it. And you can make that clear and known up front. How do you communicate to? So Cyrus, the best way to communicate to them would be to ask them, like, what are the barriers to use? Are they busy? Is it unintuitive? Do they feel that your product is just a nice to have versus a must have? And how can you understand ways that you can either be able to thank you, Cyrus. So, we were so busy. Okay, so maybe people are thinking of your product as a nice to have, and you've got to really dive into what problems you're solving and why people, like how you could do that in perhaps a better way. They're so busy. Are you there to help them save time if they're so busy? So without knowing more about your product, this is the point that I can make. Okay, everyone, I think I've covered most of your questions. There's one here that was shared with me privately. How can I get my audience energized? That is a great question, and it's something that you've got to figure out more about your audience. If they're not energized already, what are you doing to better understand who they are and what they care about? Okay, I've got a question here from Kieran. What is the best channel to reach or communicate with a rural part of the country? Well, depends on which country, Kieran, that we're talking about. Certainly, as I've mentioned, there are platforms that reach people in specific areas and are targeted for specific areas. Now, if you are talking about Facebook, there are going to be Facebook groups that appeal to people in certain regions. There will, of course, be Twitter chats that will appeal to people in, let's say, rural parts of the United States or parts of Europe. So this is for you to figure out which, I would say, really which sub portions of a channel appeal to the people that you're trying to reach. I don't think there's one specific channel that I can say, go to this one and this is it. So you'll have to find the subgroups within each channel that are relevant for your target audiences. Mubarak Sumaila says, if your audience is not online, what is the best way to engage them and get them to see the value you provide? Wow, this is a tough one. The advice for marketers is always to go where your audience is, where they get out there. If they're not online, where are these people gathering? Are there meetups where they're discussing issues? Are there organizations or associations? Are there trade shows where you can get a speaking slot in particular? It's great to be able to exhibit, but much better from a credibility perspective to be able to present and discuss something that you're doing that will help them, that isn't just product or service focused exclusively, that is a little bit more global in nature. Okay, so a quick follow-up from Evo. Sometimes a company should not share much on social. So this is really true. We have had customers who work in sensitive industries like cybersecurity. So in those cases, you have to really think about what the value will be for you to reveal certain information, either about yourself or about your client base. And in many cases, if your client base is in that kind of a sensitive field, you're not going to want to discuss them too much. But you can certainly still take a transparent approach while being careful on social media to not reveal too much. Okay, and on that note, I actually have to jump on yet another session. And so I think at this point I will have to wrap up the Q&A, but I'm so grateful to all of you for being so engaged and offering these really thought-provoking questions. It's been a great mental exercise for me, and I hope it's been of value to you.
Guys, give her a round of applause of virtual claps. They're coming through now, Christy.
I love it.
Awesome session. Thank you so much for your time.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. This was my pleasure. Good luck, everyone, and enjoy the accelerator.
Thank you, thank you. All right, guys, keep them coming. Virtual claps. All right, so I'm gonna pull up the closing presentation now. If you guys can bear with us for 15 more minutes, because we're gonna end on time today. And so how's everyone doing? I mean, we're extending the voting link to get feedback on today's session. I know it was a lot of content. I'm getting a lot of feedback on that. It's like, wow. And someone said, this is just day one. They could have had this over the course of like a whole week. So we've been reading the comments, and I'm glad that you guys are getting a lot of value out of it. And so I just want to start by pretty much recapping the week, because as you guys know, this is a 3-month accelerator. So this is Accelerator Week, but we also have sessions for the next couple of months. So just to recap, today was all about ideation and product development. And then we had our guest speaker, Christy DePaul, who had an amazing session about how to communicate, because it's something that's very, very crucial in today's age in terms of communicating your thoughts, your ideas as an entrepreneur. Tomorrow, I think tomorrow is going to be a very intensive time, because we're going to talk about growth hacking and customer acquisition, how to find customers to sustain your business. This is a very popular session. So I'm glad that we had no technical glitches. People were able to log in. So I'm glad everyone was able to come on. A couple of you guys were still rotating in and out based on your local internet Wi-Fi. I know some people in Kenya were saying that there were some tech issues within their home country in terms of like internet in their homes. But as far as everyone coming on the call, I'm glad everyone was able to make it. Just a reminder, we do have a couple of speakers tomorrow coming on. So tomorrow we have 2 speakers. We have Marissa Raxon from HubSpot and then UM from Startup Grind. So 2 really great sessions coming your way tomorrow. These are 2 speaker sessions that are coming on at different times. UM will be coming from 12:30 to 12:45, and Marissa will be coming pretty much at the same time by Christy. So you'll have 2 great sessions to hear what they have this week. And the topics that they'll be sharing with you tomorrow is marketing best practices for startups, and you'll be talking about marketing, market segmentation, building your business to succeed. So some really good sessions tomorrow. Post the GSE content on custom acquisition. Okay. With that said, I'm going to bring it to a close now. I know some of you guys are overwhelmed. I know it's a lot of content. Some of you might be tired. It's been a lot. But we'll now bring it to a close and open up the mics. I know Andra and myself are on the line. If anyone has any final comments that they want to provide, we'll keep the floor open for about 5 or so minutes. And then we'll close out. And I just want to say congratulations, everybody. You just completed day 1 of Accelerator Week. So congrats, 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 congrats. You guys did it. So I know, like I said, it was intense. I am sending the voting thread on. Don't forget to submit that. I believe only 27 of you submitted your votes. And currently on the call, there's still 164 on the call. So please vote your best session of the day, because usually we pick one of those sessions at the end of the program to do an in-depth session on that. So please do your votes. Please do your votes on that. And then without further ado, I'm going to unmic everyone. Everyone back, but you can't unmute yourself. And I'm just gonna say again, sending your vote.
Thank you very much, Francis. Thank you very much. Okay, no one Anyone can do that,
Okay, I'm getting a lot of messages that's a little bit disruptive. I know the orientation, I think when we had less people is easier. So how about this? I'm sending the link on the chat feed. That's the best way to communicate your feedback. And in the comment session, definitely you could share what else that you prefer for the week in terms of updates and information. So I'm sending the link on the vote code. Guys, I know a lot of people usually like to see this, what the votes are coming in at. So let's get a drum roll. We had 3 sessions from GSE, right? Do you guys want to see what was the most popular one according to your feedback? I'm going to show you guys right now. 1 second. I'm going to do a share. Just monitor my because we have open shares for transparency here at GSE. So this is the current voting right now in terms of what everyone liked. So don't forget to vote. Now we have 44 votes. Okay, so it looks like the ideation B plan was a very popular one. And keep in mind, feel free to give feedback. Very international group. As you guys can see, we got New York, Nigeria, Texas. We got Cameroon, Nigeria, Haiti, UK. We have India, we have Taiwan, we have Kenya, Venezuela, Rwanda. This is your class, guys. Comments coming in from around the world about feedback on today. So 46 votes now on the commentary on what's going on. So really, really great feedback. Really great feedback. We're still reading them as we go along. Let's see how you guys felt about Christy. So I asked you guys to do voting on Christy as well. Was it good? Was it great? Was it poor? Let's see what you guys said. Only 19 votes. A lot of you said it was great. So this is great feedback for her to see. If you guys have any comments, feel free to put that on the thread as well. So keep the votes coming, guys. Keep the votes coming. As you guys bring in the votes, we can send this out to her. All right, I'm putting the link back again so that way you guys can see it. Check out the link right there. Let's see where you guys at right now as a group. All right, still a lead on this. I got another person from Italy now. Italy, okay? Any feedback, even negative ones, guys, you can throw them out there. Don't worry, I can handle it. I won't cry. Send in your feedback, send in your feedback. Let's say what you're seeing. Let's see what you're seeing about Christy. All right. This is really great feedback for her to see this, guys. Really great feedback. All right. Really great feedback. And then the site is back up. I know there was a site crash. So just showing you guys right here, the site is back up. So you guys could go back to voting. I wanted to give you guys a visual on the polling sites because I think everyone is still a little bit confused about how to vote for the demos. So a couple of you guys are doing this pretty well, but like for example, this is Africa. The top companies we selected for the demo for Africa. And pretty much so far, it's generating about 7,529 views. So keep in mind, like, you guys are generating a lot of exposure. The same goes for the features that we did for each company that was selected for the program. So right now, if I see, let's see who has the most votes so far. This is the voting right now. So very tight race. So don't forget to vote for your peers. You guys are also welcome to vote for each other. But these are the votes coming in. So this is how it's coming in for each one right now. Let's look at America. So just so you guys can have a visual on what's happening. America, these are the votes coming in for America for demo day. Right? So let's see top votes. So this is competitive between these two, very close. So it's a really great exercise to engage your community, to get them to see what you're doing and get them to know what you're about. So this is all the sites. I know the site crashed today because we got way too many views on the GSE website all at the same time today. Mainly because this is the day one of the program. Also, you guys are also competing for the votes. Also, you guys are also going there for feedback information. So very intensive list of votes coming in right now for all of the companies. So definitely root for each other. Let's go back and see what you guys think about Christy. Really great feedback. Let's see what you guys are saying about the session. Still in the lead. Still waiting for more votes on this. All right. Yes, guys, you guys can ask each other to vote for you on the thread. Really great to ask people to vote for each other. All right. Okay, thank you for the feedback. So someone said administration of GSE could have been better. Please be specific on what you mean by admin because we are trying to manage a lot of companies all at once. Waitlist startups, unfortunately, might not be listed. We're still going through them right now, but the final list is Tuesday. So I repeat, do not email the account. Do not email the account to request to be listed because we already have a final list going live tomorrow morning. And Andra mentioned that to all of you guys. So some of the waitlist companies might be listed. Just wait out Tuesday morning. We'll do an email blast. And every single day, you guys will get an email blast summary to prepare you to summarize what we discussed the day before, but to prepare you for the next day. So not to worry, always look at the Google dashboard, always look at the emails. Every single day we come in with that. So Onion, I think you're a part of the Her Future cohort. You guys have a separate program. As stated on orientation on the 16th, this is an accelerator week, which is open to everyone. Your WhatsApp group, your Facebook group, and the demo day information is separate, and you'll get access to that after Accelerator Week. All right? So just clarifying, that's the reason why we had orientation on the 16th Friday to describe that your program structure is different than GSE. Okay? No worries, no worries. So for those of you, okay, Onion, I think you got some popularities. Karan is asking how to be a part of the Her Future Accelerator. We already selected the Her Future cohort for London. We're still selecting participants for the New York Accelerator if you're based in New York. We're trying to open it up to Africa. We're considering bringing the Her Future Accelerator to Ghana for Africa. So we'll keep you guys posted on updates, but you guys are at least already a part of the GSE Digital Accelerator. So each day we grow. Asia, we're trying. It just depends on partners to help us bring it to Asia. So we'll keep you posted. Someone says in the Caribbean, we're thinking about doing a launch in Haiti. We'll keep you posted. What about Nigeria? Okay, now I'm causing some battles on the thread. What about my country? This one, this one, this one. Someone said GSE Asian companies page is still down. Wow. Okay, let's check that out. So Asia is still down. Let's check that out. I'm gonna bring that. I'll see if I can bring that up right now. See what's going on. Our tech team is working diligently on this. I'm still sending the vote-in thread on the feed, so that way you guys can see it. Last call, because I'm about to bring this to a close, so that way we end on time. Let's see what you guys are saying. Yeah, I think some of the pages are crashing again. We're getting a lot of votes. Our tech team is working on it. Our tech team is working on it. All right. So with that said, I'm going to send, Boomy, if you haven't gotten your classroom link, I said this several times already, that you might have your email rejected by Google Classroom. And so we sent an email out today to everyone saying that to register another email, preferably maybe a Gmail account, to see if that would be accepted. We have no jurisdiction on what Google actually accepts or doesn't accept based on domain restrictions that they have for each country around the world. So submit an alternative email to get that access to Google Classroom. You're not the only one that's dealing with that session right now. Right now, there's still 308 companies that had a similar problem, and we did not know that Google has restrictions in certain countries for certain domains. But keep in mind, despite not having the access to the classroom, you still have access to the sessions. So just make sure you come online each time for the sessions, okay? All right, last call for the votes. We're about to come to a close. Last call for the votes. People are saying keep voting for me. So I'll start with this and say that, guys, I really thank you guys for today. Definitely, I know you're tired. 3 hours of back-to-back content today. Tomorrow's going to be the same exact way, and we have 2 speakers. And we try to kind of prime you. Each day we add another speaker. So today we had 1 speaker. Today we have 2 speakers. The next day we have 3 speakers. So that way it's easy for you to balance with all the content that's coming in at you for the week. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much, everyone, for your time. I'm going to come to a close now and conclude day 1 of Accelerator Week. Congratulations. Keep monitoring your emails. Keep monitoring the WhatsApp threads. Keep monitoring everything, because we're trying our best to tap you in different ways so that way you have access to everything. Congrats again. I'll see you tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern sharp. You guys know what region you guys are based on that time frame. See you soon. Love you.
Alright, this is alright, thank you. This is Abufari Abatunde from Startup Arewa Startup Up, Arewa Tech Hub in Nigeria. So we're a company in charge of we do some projects actually. Some projects we handle some personal projects and business projects for people. and we're using technology to create solutions for business owners. So you can check our profile, our website, arewatech.com.ng to know more about what we do. So see you guys later. Since we have more time to stay together, so we'll be seeing together later. We'll be talking more